Good evening. It is two nights before Thanksgiving, and I have had a very interesting day. So much so that I just couldn't wait to lie down and just get quiet so I could think about the events of the day, because I'm doing something very different and very exciting in my life. I've decided to go back to my homesteading roots. And for those of you who don't know what homesteading is when you get a plot of land or get a house on a lot of land and you develop it. And in a sense, you can monetize your land from various endeavors. So, to give you some background, I now live in the city. And I've always said to all of my friends and family, I just love the city. I love the city. I love the convenience, which I do. I have several properties in the city. And I have really enjoyed. I've always lived in the properties that I've purchased and then fixed them up and then rented them out. Excuse me. And I currently moved out of all of the properties, have all of them rented out, and I'm living, in an apartment temporarily until I can figure out the next property that I want to move into and purchase. So I've used this time just to think about what I want, and I've been trying to really tune into my spirit and my gut, my instinct on what I want to do. And no matter how much I attempt to fight it, no matter how much my real estate agent sends me these wonderful properties that I could take and fix up and either flip or fix up and live in or rent, I find myself wanting to go back, which is the opposite of what everyone else is doing. Everyone's coming into the city. We have people coming in from New York, California, Rhode Island, even Mexico, China, Saudi Arabia. I live in a very diverse apartment community. And it's a good mix of professionals, retirees, some graduate students, and they're from all over the world, not just from all over the country, but from all over the world, and it's really interesting to see the sheer number of people who are willing to pack themselves into the city just for the convenience. And along with that, just watching the number of people who have come to, Atlanta just to capitalize on the building boom and the business boom. And it is here. With all of its faults, there's a lot of good stuff here in Atlanta and in the surrounding Atlanta areas. Excuse me. I'll explain to you in a moment while I'm sneezing. But what I have noticed is that this area is becoming overpopulated. And there's yet again this artificial inflation of prices for everything, for cars, definitely for rents and for housing. Everybody's trying to grab as much cash as they can before the next bubble occurs. And as a result, the streets are congested. There's a tremendous amount of overbuilding, especially when you drive within areas like Midtown and downtown Peachtree. I'm on Peachtree. So everywhere I go, there's yet another apartment community going up, either for people over 55 or for young professionals. Now there's another community going up in Buckhead for families, for upscale families. And keep asking the same question. Where are all of these people going to drive to? How do you move within that type of space? And there's no more space within the city to expand out unless you go south. So you have to build up. You know, now there's this premium on airspace to build. But I have had this growing desire to move to the country. And so I called up my real estate agent because she had just sent me like my upkeep listing of properties in various areas in Atlanta. And I said, you know, I love Atlanta and I really appreciate the business, the real estate business that I've been able to do here. And I know there's more here to be developed and had, but I kind of want to do some reverse pioneering. And so when I said this to my real estate agent, she had this kind of surprised look on her face. She said, what do you, in her voice, she said, what do you mean? Because she's new, she's young, no more than, I think she's 24 years old. But she has, you know, she has a good spirit about her, and I like giving young professionals a chance, so I gave her a chance. And she's been very good. But she said, what do you mean by reverse pioneering? I said, well, you know, there's this term that you hear a lot in neighborhoods that have been gentrified called urban pioneering, which basically means that you have these white, young white professionals moving into these, you know, decrepit areas that tend to be predominantly black, with lots of garbage in the streets and rundown houses and people walking around the neighborhood and everybody's broke and all of this stuff. And they come in and they kind of tough out the unpleasant surroundings, but they develop those surroundings starting with the home that they live in. And they eventually clean the streets up and they fix up their homes. They bring in businesses and stores and all of these things. Like in one of my neighborhoods that I used to live in, when I purchased a duplex that I fixed up, there was, you know, I sat there for a couple of years and I just watched as slowly each house fell one by one to someone who, you know, wasn't black. And the houses were transformed before my eyes and painted. And now there's like a coffee shop down the street. And I said, huh, that's interesting. That's interesting. It's happening here too. But I can't blame them. You know, if we don't come in and purchase them, then who else is supposed to come in and purchase these homes? So I told her reverse pioneering is when people like me, and I'm black, you know, and a woman and single, people like me head back out to the country, which I know people think is a bad thing, but we head back out to the country, not necessarily the suburbs. And we just kind of develop our land, and we just homestead. We take these lands and we develop the land in these areas to be more amenable to what we would like our lives to be. And yes, sometimes there's less convenience. Sometimes it's a little rugged. Sometimes you have to deal with having to travel longer distances to get the things you're used to getting. But the trade-off is that you actually get to develop and create in a clean environment with not too many people around you and a slightly slower pace. The kind of life that you want for yourself without the frenzy of the city. So I told her, I want you to change my my profile. I want you to start sending me properties with lots of land with a minimum of 5 acres. I gave her my price range. And I said I would like at least a minimum of 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. But if you find something with the 2 bedrooms, depending on how it's built and the space, the size, and the amount of land it's on, I would be willing to consider that also. Excuse me. So we did that. And oh, I cannot wait to tell you why I'm sneezing. So we did that, and she gave me a 12 acre. She found for me several properties, one of which had 11.56 acres of land. And this 2,000 square foot house with a finished basement, a pond that is about the size of, I would say, the length of a football field and the width of an Olympic-sized pool, 14 feet deep, fully fenced, with a workshop fitted with electricity and water, a pole barn. And for those of you who don't know what a pole barn is, a pole barn, picture a barn where you keep horses. So it has, yes, so it has that on it, a pole barn, which the current owner fitted with water and electricity, and 2 other storage sheds, and just land like as far as the eye can see. It's beautiful. The driveway from the house to the street is 1/4 of a mile long. And then the back entrance from the pond to the other side of the property leads to the highway, which is 1/2 mile. And I walked all of that today with my real estate agent and the current owner of the home and his wife. I walked all of that. So I was walking through all the things that I'm allergic to, like the ragweed and the old leaves and leaves from years gone by, and the deer droppings and the coyote fur. All of this stuff I was walking through, but it was amazing, you know. And I took pictures and notes and video, which I'm going to show you in my next video. This video was just a little introduction, but I took pictures and notes of just everything that I could do with it. And the current owner of this property looked at me because, you know, I'm this single black woman. And he said, I don't mean to say anything out of line, but he said, do you have a husband or something that's going to help you with this? I said, well, no, I don't. Not to say that I won't in the future, but currently, no, I don't. And he said, okay. He said, do you have any brothers? Do you have any, is your dad going to help you? He said, well, I have a dad. I have a couple of brothers. And I said, I don't think they're really interested in doing stuff like this anymore. I said, but, I used to do some homesteading years ago in California. And he was just so tickled to hear that. He said, well, what did you do? I said, well, I built homes out of adobe. And for a couple of years, I moved to Mexico, where I taught the natives how to create irrigation systems out of dry, arid land in the side of the mountain. I said, I also taught people how to build adobe houses in Mexico. And I know how to garden. And I know how to tend to animals. I've done a variety of those things over the years. And I told him if I purchase this land, I'm not just going to live in it and just sit here with my dogs looking over the mountain. I'm actually going to find ways to monetize the different spaces that this encompasses. This is just, it's too beautiful just to live on. And he said, yeah, you're right. He said, this workshop here, and he pointed to the workshop, which used to be a garage. He said, this workshop here is something that he built. He actually built out the workshop and put in water and electricity. And he said, if you wanted to, this workshop would be a great apartment or an Airbnb. I said, yes, I was just thinking that. And so we talked again, and that conversation seemed to kind of warm him towards me. Like he realized that I was You know, I just wasn't just random black woman walking up to buy his property, that I actually had some plans. I actually had plans. So later on, I spoke to my real estate agent as we were leaving, and she said, well, you know, she said, I know you have a small business, but you also work. And she said, how are you going to feel about that commute? And I said, well, you know, I work in the office 2 days a week, and I work from home 3 days a week. And I don't mind driving a little bit of traffic 2 days a week. And if I were to lose my ability to telework, I wouldn't stay in that job much longer, because that's the only reason I'm still there. I would find something else to do. But when I, you know, leaving the property, we drove away, went down the hill again, turned a couple of turns, and we were literally in the middle of a shopping area, 5 minutes away from the property. And I thought, okay, I can have this nice rural location and at the same time be around the convenience of the city and catch a major thoroughfare to my job, about 35 minutes away. So I couldn't complain. But in the next video, I'll discuss what homesteading is. I am getting tired. I've been walking up and down mountains and hills and wading on the edge of ponds and walking up and down steps and taking measurements. So, and all the things that I was around, all the leaves and the trees and the mold out there has me sneezing and coughing. So I need to go and, excuse me, I need to go and take some allergy medication and go back to sleep. But this is part 1 of my homesteading series. And part 2, I'm going to talk about some of the things I'm going to do to monetize the property. And then I'll keep you updated as I go along on this process through the entire adventure. Not just the looking for the property and the conversations that I have with people, but also, you know, the purchase process and the financial matters behind the scenes during the purchasing process, and also just keep you updated on what I'm doing as I live in the property. It's going to be really exciting, I think, if I do this. Anyway, YouTube, good night.